It's Michael Molthan, M to the Rock, coming to you from Dallas, Texas, D-Town. Man, we got one today. You already see his face. He's the most recognizable, the official doctor, therapist, PhD of M to the Rock. And for all my followers and people who have been watching, I've been very open about my experience with Dr. Rob Kelly, neuroscience and positive psychology coaching, mental wellness, business success, trauma, childhood trauma, family systems coaching. And I like how at the end, addiction and alcoholism. And when I read that for the first time, it's at the end because if I don't address all the things above, then the addiction and alcoholism become the symptom. And I think the solutions to make these problems go away. Dr. Kelly, good to see you, my friend.
Thank you, Michael. Great to see you again. Hey, guys, sit down. It's going to be a great one today.
Absolutely. Educational. Make sure you subscribe and under Dr. Kelly's name, you'll see his website domain where you can go visit him and follow him on all his social media platforms and message him or call him anytime you need. But I really enjoyed the last 6 days down in San Antonio working with you. Very intense. And we're going to get into that today. But, a lot of people talk about therapy and having a therapist. And, some people don't want to admit it. And then when some people are nudged, maybe you ought to go see a therapist to talk about what you're going through. It's valid. And I'm here to say that it's working for me. I mean, it is really helping me. And then when things happen that make me uncomfortable, as a result of your coaching and counsel and guidance, I'm able to see it differently and handle it differently. And I'm really excited about that. And I appreciate you, Dr. Kelly. And I appreciate what you do for a lot of people. But here's a question I want to ask you to start the show off is, how do I find a good therapist? For people who can't work with Dr. Kelly and, there are good therapists out there, and then there are not good therapists out there, just like any business. But how do I do this? I mean, what questions do I ask and how do I get with the right therapist?
So the best thing to do is look at what you're suffering from. If it's depression or alcoholism or, whatever the problem is you're going through, lack of confidence, childhood trauma, make sure, first of all, that you choose a therapist that's been through what you've been through. Very important, guys. And secondly, go see 3. Don't just see one and go, okay, go see 3 different therapists. Check in with them for 30 minutes. Some do it free, 30-minute quick get to know each other. And find out if you relate to that guy, if you bond with that guy or girl and they've been through the stuff you've been through. You see, the problem with, like you just said, Michael, there's great therapists out there, there's great treatment centers out there, but unfortunately about 90% are not. And if you're going to moan and on the radio, yes, that's for you. 10% never moan. They just know it's them. They're doing the great work. Is you've got to make sure that you gel. You can go to college for 10 years, learn about alcoholism or addiction. That doesn't give you the qualifications, PhD or not, to work with the person that's suffering from that. Now, any other illness, you don't have to suffer from depression to treat depression, but addiction and alcoholism, totally different. Yeah? The mind is completely different. 3 parts of the brain are differ from anyone else in the world. So you've got to make sure that it's a fit for you. So contact 3, go see them. I see a therapist every month. I see her once a month. And this is how I found my therapist. I couldn't just walk into anywhere because everyone knows who I am. I wanted to keep it secret because I needed someone to talk to. So I booked 3. I went into the first one and he introduced himself and I said, I suffer from alcoholism and addiction, or did do. Can you relate to that? And he said, I've never been through it myself, but my father did. It's like, I'm good. And he said, wait. I've been to college for 5 years. I have a master's in addiction counseling. So I said to him, okay, well, if you have a bottle of vodka behind your back and I had a knife, would you understand why I would repeatedly stab you in the face until I got that bottle of vodka off you? Well, Michael, he freaked out. Oh, hang on a sec. You're not for me. Went out. Second one's just the same. They freaked out. Got to the third one, which happened to be 80-year-old ex-heroin addict. She had long dreadlocks and she'd aged pretty good for what she'd been through. And I told her this story about being very violent with this knife. And she turned around and said to me, oh, no, I'd stab you first so I could drink the alcohol. That's my therapist right there. So it's important that you bond. They know what you're going through. They've been through it before. Also, they have the education. Coach, there's some great coaches out there, guys, but just be careful. You don't have to have qualifications in coaching world. In fact, Texas doesn't require them yet. But, something, a diploma, something, experience, something where you can relate will be the perfect person for you.
And is it important that a man works with a man and a woman works with a woman, or does that matter?
That's a myth going back to the old greedy days of AA. I think now it doesn't make any difference. I mean, unless you've got something really intimate that you feel uncomfortable. It's like, say it's a guy telling a woman, and obviously your choice is a man, but it makes no difference. I get on, would you believe, I'm 63 in a couple of weeks' time. My prime patient age is 16 to 22. That's who I get on with most. Because they obviously, look up to me a little bit and they can relate. And I talk to them as they wanted to be talked to, not from a higher person or professional person. I always try to go down or go up to their level, whatever it may be, to make sure I communicate. So, yeah, that came from sponsoring, I think, unfortunately. I don't agree with that. I sponsored many women in my life as well as many men. I just think if it's a fit for you, go for it, man.
And so is the client protected? I mean, if they take that risk and they open up and they're sharing these, what they think are dark secrets, and when they share that, are they protected that doesn't go anywhere?
If you're a licensed therapist, then the HIPAA regulations prohibit you telling anybody or starting gossip or anything like that. If you go to a psychologist, a licensed psychologist or psychiatrist, they're the same. Nothing could come out unless you have murdered somebody or manslaughter, then they have to tell the police. So you are HIPAA, under HIPAA regulations until one of them HIPAA rules. It's best just go on the internet and find out what they are. If you violate one of them rules, then like if you went and it's all in confidence, but you told your therapist, licensed therapist, where everything is confidential, not even the police can get them records without a warrant. If you tell them that you want to make sure that you're in the right environment, coaches are not in that realm. Okay, so if you get confidential with a coach and he spreads the rumor, there's nothing you can do about it because they're not licensed or regulated right now. So again, I have some serious stuff to tell. Some people, when I was a licensed psychologist, told me some stuff that was just absolutely mind-blowing, but it was safe. Unless the police came to my door with a search warrant, they weren't getting my records on nobody because we're protected like that.
Interesting. And it brings up a good point. What is the difference, real quick, between Dr. Rob Kelly, PhD, and a psychiatrist? What are the two differences?
Well, a psychiatrist, I'm a psychologist, a PhD psychologist. A psychiatrist can prescribe medication. That's about it. So many years ago, when you went to a psychiatrist, you'd sit there for the full hour discussing stuff and he would talk to you and you do the same as a probably highly qualified therapist, but they can prescribe medication. That's the only difference from psychologist to psychiatrist. Guys, if you're listening to psychiatry, I don't mean anything bad about this or disrespect to you guys, but basically that's what that is. Unfortunately, today, though, most psychiatrists will give you 10 minutes and they probably won't even look you in the eye and they'll get you out of that room as quick as possible with a prescription in your hand. One, because they're overloaded with work, and two, because certain psychiatrists, doctors are paid large amounts of money to push certain kind of drugs. It's why Adderall became so effective. Is they were people pushing that stuff, painkillers and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's about the only difference, I think.
That's the difference.
That the patient needs to know.
So, I want to role play a little bit, Doc, and for everybody watching, Dr. Kelly and I are working on where we're going to get behind the scenes and watch a session between Dr. Kelly and myself. But let's kind of role play, when I work with you, either via virtual or in person. And when I sit down, I love it. It's the initial check-in. So let's kind of do that for a second here. So we're starting now, and I sit down and turn loose, Doc.
Yeah, what's your scale of 1 to 10 tonight, Michael? 1 being miserable and 10 being amazing. Where would you be on that scale?
I'm about an 8 today.
8. So the question has to be asked after that is, what would make it a 9?
Probably to get release of the fear that I am going through right now.
And what fear would that be?
It's
Basically.
well, basically, a lot of it is the fear of the unknown, the future. We have the book coming out, oh my God, we got to do this. We got to plan, the promotion tour, the book tour, money and all this stuff. And I get way out there in my head and I get, really anxious. So that's the fear I'm struggling with. But just now, I just got some relief sharing that with you.
Yeah, you will once you start sharing. It's unbelievable. We hold that anxiety behind. It only serves us in the wrong way, obviously. The next thing we go through is let's check in to see if you have any resentments. And so, do you have any resentments today?
Today, I don't. I don't have any resentments. I'm in a good place on that.
And for those guys who don't know what resentments are, you'd be surprised who doesn't. If somebody's pissed you off or you piss them off, it's a basic answer I can give you. Then it's kind of a resentment. Get rid of that stuff. And fear as well, the same question. Do you have any fear today?
Yeah, and right now that's subsided in the last 2 minutes.
Brilliant.
I've released the power of it by sharing it, and that's why I love doing what we're doing, because it gets me more centered. Starting this interview out, I was in a lot of fear. I mean, I was thinking about other stuff other than this, right here, right now.
Yeah,
and I'm feeling a little better.
Grateful. And give me 3 things you're grateful for, man.
Well, I'm grateful for you. I'm
you.
grateful. I'm grateful for my fiance, Lee. Truly grateful for what she does for me. And I guess I'm grateful for my little dog, Foxy.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. And then obviously we'd go into some serious talk on trauma or what today's bringing, but that's basically what
one thing that you said last time, I like that, is, are you recognizing any self-sabotage behaviors?
Yes.
And, that opened up a great conversation that you and I had. For the first time, I said, I'm recognizing some self-sabotage behavior. And I'm so grateful, that I recognized it and didn't want to go down that road again.
So the self-sabotaging question is always good, and I'll tell you why. Because self-sabotage is all about patterns. Now, the definition of insanity, the true psychological definition of insanity, is me not being able to see my own truth. So with what's going on in the world, I can't see that. It's like when you're drinking, you're the last to know. We don't see what's going on. So there are always patterns. The world and life itself is about patterns and math. That's what it comes down to. So let's say somebody relapses on Monday. That's not when you relapse. You go back a week or even 2 weeks, 3 weeks to find out where that pattern changed. And you will always find a pattern that changes. You have to remember, when people come to people like me, the pattern is self-sabotage, and the brain, the basal ganglia, it's called, is set up to destroy after a certain amount of wins. So we get the wife back, get the kids back, get the job, and then bang, it jumps in and we self-sabotage. So it's really, really important that you realize that pattern, whether that be, this is an easy one. I get up in the morning, I go to work, I'm agitated, the boss pisses me off, so I give him a piece of my mind. Stop. There's your relapse. 2 or 3 days, 4 days later, when you're in the bar drinking that beer going, what the hell just went on? Back to that point. Why was you pissed off? Oh, well, I was tired. Why was you tired? Why do you sleep very well? Well, I went to bed late. It's all under your control. All under your control. So you can, as long as we recognize the pattern, we can change the self-sabotage way before it happens. And this is what people don't really understand, is you can be and do anything you want to do with the power of the mind and the brain. Mind over the brain, which is matter. Mind over matter is where the saying comes from. But you have to outthink the subconscious brain. So going back to that being pissed with the boss, there it is right there. You've got to understand that there it is, because we, as human beings, we get complacent. So we get the new car, we get the new job, but 6 months in, it's just, whatever. Getting a new car, you drive to it, whatever. It's like, you would have given you a right arm for that car 12 months ago. But we get in that complacency. Once we're in that complacency, we miss the pattern change. Now that
Yeah.
might be blatant or slight, but we miss that pattern. So we had a patient over in Highland Park. We were there in the medical building. She came and she's an ex-model, so she obviously careful what she eats. Anyway, my staff who was taking her out for the day called in and said, hey, she wants to go to McDonald's. And I said, search your bag. So he has to pay, can I search your bag? Oh, I don't know. Found out there's half a bottle of vodka in that bag that she planned on drinking later on when she dropped her off back at the halfway house. So that's the kind of patterns we're looking for. That's a blatant one, but basically,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Why do we self-sabotage? I mean, let me put it this way. Why was I self-sabotaging myself now that you know me so well?
Childhood trauma. The gateway drug is childhood trauma and trauma that relates from that. So childhood, so this happened to me, but it doesn't bother me today. Well, let's look at what this is down here that happened. Well, my mum and dad split up. Okay. Did you struggle in relationships? Well, yeah. But I mean, that's obviously nothing to do with my mum and dad. It wasn't really. Did you do this? Oh my God, I did. Why? And we go back. I mean, it's not rocket science, but we've been researching for 20 years, pertaining to the neuroscience behind all of this. But when you understand what's going on, it's not rocket science to understand our childhood, what we're told as a child, okay, and our eating and learning and sleep. It all comes from our parents teaching us the basal ganglia to repetition, strength, and confirms of something. But as toddlers, mum says, don't put your hand on the hot stove. We try it. We start crying. So we believe that what mum tells us is the truth. So what people say to us is the truth. So when strangers tell us, we believe it to be the truth. Okay, that's what we hear. What we see is how we feel. So if I watch a sad movie, I might feel sad, happy movie. But what we don't see is when we're growing with childhood is the irritation between mum and dad. They're not speaking, the verbal wars that you can hear in your bedroom. These are all things that we'll call abandonment, and growing up will affect your relationships. Because if you see dad coming home 4, 5, 6 nights of the week, drunk, beating mum up, you think that's normal. So when you go through life and you start to get somewhere in life, you will self-sabotage that, because going back to childhood, that it doesn't feel like that. This is the way home is. What's the first thing people want to do when they get sick? Want to go home. I want to go home. I just want to go home. Well, for childhood trauma people, home is that violent house. Yeah. So anything else just seems unnatural. So we'll self-sabotage, because the bottom line is we don't think we're worthy. We're never tall enough, blonde enough, thin enough, or rich enough. And we carry that from childhood trauma that will never be anybody. So quickly, while we're on that, before your next question, is this, guys, is if you don't think you amount to anything and everything you've tried, your mum and dad were right, you'll never amount to anything, I want to apologize to you, because somebody's put that there. Babies are born with $1 million minds. Why the hell do we listen to 10-cent minds? I've never understand that.
Yeah, and you remind me of something that I say a lot and quote a lot, is that stop focusing on the addiction and start focusing on why the addiction, right?
Yeah.
And why the addiction. And for me, it's the trauma, the pain, and the suffering. And as a result of working with you and this quote unquote, as you call, breakthrough that you witnessed and I had, what happened is I finally forgave myself. And I told myself that I love myself. And that's where the suffering was released and the spirituality grew. Does that make sense, Doc?
Yeah, it does. Very, very important. We go back and look at that,
Yeah. And speaking of that, one of the incredible products that you introduced to me that you have, that you use is called 9D breath work. And, you introduced it to me and I kind of did a little eye roll. I thought that this was hocus pocus witchcraft stuff. But it has worked for me. And this last time that we spent together, I had a major breakthrough on the going down the, I can't remember the name of it, the ancestral, background, the timeline.
Yes, exactly.
Or the ancestral family tree.
Yes.
We went through that. And it was just unbelievable, where I literally, saw my mom and my dad and grandfather and grandmother. And on the other side, the grandfather that molested me. And they literally told me that we love you. You're forgiven. Please forgive us. and they told me to love myself. And you witnessed it. I mean, I couldn't drive home for an hour. I had to just sit with you and I couldn't talk. I was shaking. What is 9D and what happened to me?
Well, what happens is well, it's complicated to explain, but basically 9D is a breathwork aid with subliminal messages and 9-dimensional sound around you. And the idea is while the guy's talking to you and he's taking you back and he's taking you through some hard stuff or easy stuff, the other subliminal messages behind that in 9 dimensions, so it's all over the place, will start to re-engage with the conscious brain of telling them the truth that you are worthy and you can do this. And there's 22 programs on it, and it's just it transcends. It's unlike any other therapy that anybody else has been through. Okay, so the emotional tensions and various parts of the bodies, without realizing it, are all going in different directions. What we do by this breathwork movement is get awareness with the individuals about the emotional states that they're in and what they're going through. And it will draw you out in such a way that you have no choice but to heal. Okay? So the breathwork is, some of it's not breathwork. So, when we call it 9D breathwork, it's kind of a little bit, I call it that, but it's this much more than that.
Oh, yeah.
It's being aware of who you are, where you can go, the troubles in the past. It walks you through everything using the breath work, so you're staying calm as you go through it. But it's very, very, very emotional. And I know when you come in, it's not up to me, because of HIPAA violation, to describe the way you went through it. But if you want to share with people, it's immense.
Yeah, and one of the things that it took me a long time to pull it together, and I'm still processing. Something happened, and I'm already quiet, but I'm even more quiet. But it's different because I'm processing this out of body experience that I had, and I just trying to put it into words. And I had a major headache after it. Why did I have a headache?
It's just the different directions and your pathways are setting.
Yeah.
And the effort it goes into it, and the strain on the body, which obviously is the mind and the brain, and it's crazy because the dora, which is the skin around the brain doesn't actually have any pain receptors in. People think they do. No, it doesn't. That's a myth. But it's the dora outside that's been stretched, or decreases around the whole experience as you go through it. So we end up with a headache. Of course, plenty of water and a little bit of rest will get rid of that. But it's really intense. It's not like, normal breath work or a therapist taking you back to you. It's really intense, and it becomes real. And it actually takes you back, because you're wearing eye goggles, blackout mask, and these headphones. Like I say, it's 9-dimensional. So it takes
incredible sound.
Right back to that psychological place where it all happened and hurt you, because you're right there. You're not as if you're normally doing breath work and you're watching. You are right there, and that's traumatic.
Right. Why do I hold my breath? Why do I I've done it my whole life, but now I'm more focused on it. But why do I hold my breath?
It's a lot of it is anxiety. We do that. It's like, guys, if you ever taken a cold bath or an ice bath that's going around right now, when you get in it, you stop breathing, because the rest of the mind is going straight to the cold area. Quick, let's flush it, it's freezing, we're going to freeze to death. And we tend to do that. Well, we do that in life when stress and anxiety takes over. It really is sometimes a conscious effort to breathe. It's not natural in 100% of cases throughout your life. There are points when the brain will be stressed like bang with something you didn't realize, and you find yourself holding your breath, or you drop into that future of what if, and then the anxiety, and you tend to hold your breath.
Correct. Well, and how important, Doc, is, I just thought of this, how important is it, for family members or a husband or a wife, that their loved one is really leaning into therapy and really, trying to get this? What role do they play? Do they need to be in therapy, or what do they need to be doing? The mom, the dad, the husband, the wife?
So what we found with our test trials researchers is, if we take a patient on, let's say it's the guy and he's suffering from alcoholism. It's always an easy one to explain.
Mhm.
We, unless the wife comes on our girlfriend, we won't touch them. When the family, as in mum, dad, or if you're older, girlfriend, wife, husband, when they take part in this, and anybody over the age of 18 that lives in the household, the success rate jumps to 42% straight away. Straight
Right.
away. And then we look at, well, I've been to family, nights at the treatment center. All you did is you went to the place, your husband sat in front of you, and you told everyone about the bad stuff he'd done in the past. That
Right.
is not transitional family healing. That is not. That's just bashing the dad again because he's done something wrong. And no. So that's what it's imperative. We have turned down lots of people because the girlfriend or the wife have gone, well, it's not my problem. Well, actually, it is. And I'll tell you why, Mrs. Is because if you think for a second that your husband's the only one that's going down this, you answer me one thing. Why do you let your husband come home at least twice a week drunk and ends up beating you in front of the children? Talk to me about that a minute.
Yeah.
And the tears come. And it's like, we did our research and tests on a housewife in a dysfunctional alcoholic house where there's violence and 5 soldiers coming back from Afghanistan. And the PTSD was exactly the same.
Hmm.
That's what people don't realize.
That's interesting. We that's really good stuff there because we like to, talk to the loved ones and the family members because they literally say, well, what about us? I mean, he's getting well, he's on vacation or she's on vacation. What about us sitting at home? And it's good that everybody's on the same page because that way we're not triggering one another and going right back down the same path again.
Yeah, the way we explain it is you've got 2 houses, guys, okay? Let's say this is the dysfunctional house. Let's say, for instance, that you speak English, okay? What happens is recovery and, growth and childhood trauma has a different language. So we pick you out, we take you over here for 90 days and teach you how to speak German, for instance. So when we pick you up and place you back in an English-speaking house, guess what's going to happen? You're going to start speaking English. So the idea is to take the patient, if it's telehealth, obviously psychologically, but we teach them both English. So when you drop back in, you're all on the same page, you're all talking the same language, and the 42% increase straight away. That's why we have a 97% success rate. Straight away happens because everybody's on the same page.
Well, and it makes sense on your success rate because you vet them properly up front saying, hey, this is a family deal. We're all going to do this. I don't care what you're going to pay me. If we don't do it the way that I know that's going to work and it's proven, I can't work with you. And
I turned Britney Spears down for $1 million. It was 16 years ago. So Dallas, Campese's restaurant, they closed the whole restaurant off. She finished a performance at like 10 o'clock. She was supposed to be at the restaurant at 11 o'clock. They kept me there until 11:30 and she walked in and she was a bit worse for wear, if you know what I mean, guys. And I instantly stood up and I said, I can't help you. Walked towards the door. Her father, Jamie, I think it was, he stands up, he checks a checkbook out, he tears it off, he signs it, and he pushes it towards me and said, please write $1 million on there. And I said, Jamie, I can't help her, she isn't ready. And I walked out. We have fired people for not doing as they're told. We have no refund. That's the biggest saying. You're getting refunds, you're either in or you're not. So the vetting process is very strict. More people get turned down than actually get accepted by our program. And this has always been a bugbear of mine. When I start doing this for the money, all bets are off. I'm not going to be successful. Now, I know in the early days, it was hard to turn that $1 million down because I'd been in the US about 12 months. I mean, that would have been beautiful, but I wanted to stamp my mark on this is not about money, and people see me today and they see the flash watches and cars and, where we live and all that. And it's like, you have no idea what I do behind your back. You have no idea how much money we actually give away. You have no idea the time I give away to veterans and no idea the work we do. No idea. But what they see is this cocky guy, with, he's very ostentatious and he's flashy. And no, that's just, the reason why I live like that is because I can. I mean, if my dad always said, if you like a car and it's beautiful and it costs, back in the day, it cost 20,000, have you got the cash to pay for that 20,000? Because if you have, go buy the car. But if you haven't, don't go in debt for it. And that's what we live by today.
Right. And I can't support you more because at first, I thought it a little bit, but immediately getting to know you, your heart and your passion. And, we cry together, we hug each other. And And it's amazing. I want to share something that just hit me, and then we'll get into our last couple of topics. I want to share something that happened to me this morning, Dr. Kelly. I started my exercise workout this morning, like I committed to with you, with a trainer. And today was an introduction, and the gentleman was just super awesome. He researched me and, saw what he's getting into, and he was super excited. It was real spiritual. I could feel I felt his spirit, just a good dude. And he said, today I'm going to get to know your body and, do some stretching and ask some questions. And he literally rubbed all over my body in different positions and all this stuff. And it was wonderful. Okay. It was a great session. And as I was driving home, it hit me. Something happened. It was the very first time in my life that a male, don't even know him, touched me. And I didn't squirm. I didn't have flashbacks. It didn't trigger me because my whole life I could never have a man touch me. Yeah. I could shake hands and do the buddy hug. What happened?
Well, I don't mean to blow my own horn, but get with the biggest trumpet ever over here. It's the work you're doing with us. It's taking you away from
it. Is. That's exactly what it is.
So here's how powerful that is. If a person sat down and struggling, and I always ask him, can I put my arm around you? Is it okay if I touch you? Is it okay if I... And they go, yeah, of course. We'll just get through the session. And we get through. And they're struggling. I walk over, I place my hand on his shoulder, and I give him subliminal messages and encouragement, okay? Then I go and sit down. The next time he comes, he feels the same. All I've got to do is walk over and place my hand briefly on his shoulder, and all them feelings of safe encouragement comes in. You see, 95% of communication is nonverbal. So when we get into that, it's uncomfortable, your mindset has changed and your perspective on life has changed, and you now start to realize who you are. So what you were is the people that programmed you, the people that led you up to this with all the shit that happened around you. We're living off what they said and what they did. And today, when it happens, it can feel very uncomfortable, so we don't go anywhere near it. You've shifted from being groomed, whatever that looks like. I don't mean sexually, but it can be groomed into this person that's dysfunctional. So you're finding out who you are and finding out that this is safe, this is good, I'm in control here. It feels amazing. And validation and approval, if you don't get that from the parents, anything less than nurturing is child abuse. If you don't get that from the parents, it will affect you going forward.
Yeah.
So that's great news. That's kind of made my day.
And I didn't do a lead in. For people who are watching this for the very first time, I am a survivor of sexual abuse, by my grandfather, and physical abuse by my father, and so I could never let even a man cut my hair. I mean, Leo said, "Hey, let's go get a massage," and I'm like, "No, I mean nothing." Yeah. And this was just so natural, and I felt so safe. And I didn't even realize it until I was driving home. I'm like going, I didn't get the hibby-jibbies, because I would say, stop, get off me, get away from me. And it was just such another breakthrough as a result of working with you and finding myself, and
that's what. And I've got to say now on air, guys, that when Michael came to us, he was a stud. He really was, but there were certain parts missing. What you are today going forward is almost unrecognizable when it comes to behavioral science, and it also becomes to the psychology behind what we're doing. It's like you have done a 180 round, and you will be very successful, more successful than you are now. You're going to help millions, if not billions of people as we rocket you into this new life. And we know we've got some exciting stuff coming up with you with the book and everything, but yeah, it's just, you're one of my best patients right now who's turned around and done it. It's been very challenging for both of us sometimes, and frustrating, for you when I ask the questions, or you don't do something I ask, or I can't even think of a time when we did that, but there was, there was kind of I don't believe this guy like most people do. And then all of a sudden, from the first session, you click right in and you put all your faith in me, which is huge, for our relationship. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, and thank you. And you hold me accountable, and also it takes two. For the people watching this, and if you're going to therapy and you work with Dr. Rob Kelly, or you work with a therapist that you feel safe with, you got to be vulnerable. You got to be transparent, and the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. Doc, we'll end with this. I have a good friend of mine, and without mentioning names, he's incredible person. Very strong in faith, helps a lot of people. He's been clean for over 14 years. I grew up with this guy, and he leans on me, and but he struggles with anxiety and panic attacks, tightness in his chest where he can't breathe. And I wanted to bring this up, because he's not the only one, because I hear this from a lot of people, and I used to, struggle with that. So let's break it down as far as what is this tightness in our chest that we're feeling, and what is anxiety?
Anxiety itself is okay. So listen to this, guys, very carefully. In a basic layman term, anxiety is worrying about what's happening in the future. It's called the unknown. So we worry about that. We get anxious, heartbeat changes, our muscles cramp, and then we feel all tight in our chest. Now, what causes anxiety? Well, here's how it starts. So my mum had anxiety, so I've got anxiety. My mum had heart problems, so I have heart problems. There's only one disease you can pass down, that's alcoholism. There's a predisposition and a generation attached to alcoholism, not addiction, not drug addiction, just alcoholism. But what happens is the family, say you were born into this family that has a staple food. Let's say, for instance, it's red meat and it's potatoes, and you grew up on that all your life. One of the reasons why father is suffering from inflammation is he can't properly methylate that red meat. So with him not being able to methylate the red meat, it causes a deficiency. Now, way before, when there's no vitamins and allowed to take, the deficiency caused the inflammation. So when we get it, we go, oh, it passed down from dad. No, when you leave, you might carry that mismethylation around red meat, but because you like steak, you go out of it. So therefore, you have the deficiency, and therefore you have, the inflammation of your body. That's what it is. And it also can cause anxiety. So if you find out what you can't methylate, MTHR blood test, go and get it done, guys, because for $400, it's well worth it. And you replace with organic multivitamins. You've got to be careful with multivitamins, guys. When you go in and you see these nice shiny multivitamins from these companies that you trust, spin it around, look what's on the back. Cybamylin, I think it's called, is cyanide. So look for all smart words. Get the organic version. Vitamins down you, proper exercise, the breath work, the presence of oxygen equals the lack of disease. Every disease grows in a hypoxic area of the body. Then you can have the full nutrients. You got the endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin flowing every single day. You start and a step up to being the best person you could ever be. So different forms of anxiety, different causes. But when you're eating well and you are, exercising and you get a focus, like 5 things to do today, and you get like a routine in your life, the anxiety will disappear. It will disappear. Rather than going to the doctor and getting on medication for the rest of your life. Now you're stuck on that medication. It goes up to $100 a pill. You're still stuck with that medication because it gives you a false sense of serotonin or whatever it is, a false chemical in the mind or in the brain. And we cannot, like our serotonin can't go over a false serotonin. So we take a pill for a false serotonin, we're stuck on that. So our own serotonin can't break through that. So what happens is we do this with our serotonin. And this is for life now. We can't manage without these pills. Why isn't anybody asking why my serotonin is low in the first place? Why isn't anybody asking why I have anxiety? And what is it about? Is it about the future? Is it something I can't control? And then is it a deficiency with the food that I'm eating?
I like what you said. We started the show out with, some struggle with some fear and anxiety. And I love it because it's lack of structure and routine. When I have structure and routine in my life, there's no anxiety. I know where I'm going, and I'm in the now. That's beautiful. Let's say, panic attack. What is a panic attack? And I mean, how do I avoid it? Is that just anxiety on steroids?
Yeah, that's all it is. And it mimics certain parts. And it also comes very, very quickly, but can go very, very quickly. And it's the inability to manage one's moment or one's day. That's what it comes down to. You have to be able to manage that day, take charge of that day, and focus what you are going to do that day. So write 5 things down in the morning, guys, you're going to complete. You might complete 100. And then 5 things you put down, they have to be complete. wash the dishes, walk the dog, whatever silly they may be, you have to. Once you do that, you have a routine. Once you have a routine, you have a plan. Once you have a plan, everything seems to calm because now you know what you're doing. And how can there be fear about the future when you've got it in black and white that this is what I'm going to do today? Future down there, if I'm concentrating on today, is de minimis. It doesn't exist. Now we have to plan for vacation. That's great. But once we get in that day, our mind doesn't wander. We don't get panic attacks and we don't get anxiety. And before you jump up screaming at the screen, guys, go do your homework around that. Myself or Gary Brecker will demonstrate online of what this is all about. It's not about the medical fraternity. You don't have to keep going to the pharmaceutical companies for relief, guys. Don't believe everything your doctor tells you. I will never, by the way, go to a doctor for my general health ever again. Ever.
Yeah, you say that all the time.
I've got to go. Never for my general health. And then the food companies get us sick, okay? The medical fraternity dish out the pharmaceutical drugs, and that's how the world is made and run.
Beautiful.
Nobody wants you well, guys, okay? Nobody wants you well. Oh, yeah, that's wrong, really? Go find organic, clean food from Whole Foods and then put it next to a price from a normal supermarket, the same things. It costs money to eat well. It should be the other way around. But we're full of sugars, we're full of all sorts of nasty red colors, yellow colors, that they're giving us every single day. Like there's 22 items in HEB right now I can take you to that's banned in 27 other countries because of the effects of causing cancers, of messing with the mind, of all sorts of stuff, but they're still being used. Fruit Loops is one of those. If your kid loves Fruit Loops, don't look on the back of that box. Do not. It'll scare the shit out of you when you look at what you're feeding your kid, because there will be miles off that.
Wow. Well, Doc, you got some big stuff coming up. What do you got coming on? You got the Neuro Realty Conference.
So we got the Neuro Realty Conference going on. It's I think it's next Friday, and
we'll put all this in the description below.
Yeah. So we're teaching realtors how to become millionaires, and then we have obviously the Old English Tea Shop doing really good next to our headquarters and office.
Oh, it's so good.
Then I go to England for 10 days. Can't miss that out. And then we have the robkellyfoundation.org. That's the only thing I will push. We just started a 501c3 nonprofit. Your donations as well, etc. We help people. You don't have to be an alcoholic. We help people, but we're different. So let's say you donate $10 and we say, thank you very much. We don't take $1 out for our services. That $10, and it's traceable, we'll show you, that $10 might go to someone else's money that goes to buy him a suit, to turn up in court on Friday, to win his kids back for the weekend. You will get an email from that guy thanking you for your $10 and telling you what he put it towards and the outcome because of that. That's the difference. It's a lot more work, but none of us get paid. No one gets paid in my nonprofit. It's all done from the goodness of our heart, period.
Beautiful. RobKelly.com. That's ROBBKELLY.com. Go there and visit his website, and you can contact him there. He's got an incredible team with Courtney, Ashley, and the boss lady, Janet, and the 2 dogs. And so Dr. Kelly, once again, the official therapist, doctor, PhD of M2 The Rock, you have meant so much to myself and Lee and everything that you're doing to help us and to help me to keep sharing how I'm growing, to let people know, give them hope. It's that simple, to provide hope, for the hopeless. And I really appreciate you coming on today and look forward to seeing you. And from all of us here at M2 The Rock, I got 3 words. It's got 8 letters, and it's got one meaning. I love you.